It was one of those quiet afternoons when time seemed to slow down, stretching like the golden rays of the setting sun that filtered through the lace curtains of Granny's cozy living room. The old armchair creaked under her as she adjusted her shawl, the familiar, worn fabric wrapped snugly around her. The room smelled of lavender and old books, a scent that always comforted her granddaughter, who had come to visit after what seemed like ages. Granny sat across from her, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup, lost in thought. There was a certain weight in her gaze today, something that made the younger woman pause. Her grandmother had always been a pillar of strength, a woman who weathered life's storms with a smile. But today, there was a tenderness in her eyes, a soft vulnerability that the granddaughter hadn't seen in a long time. Granny cleared her throat, and for a moment, the words hung between them like an unspoken secret. What? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Granny sighed, her eyes distant as if recalling a past that she had buried deep within her. Oh yes, he said I wasn't good enough, that I was too big, too plain, that no one would ever look at me the way I wanted them to. I thought he was my forever. But all those years of him calling me fatty, telling me that I wasn't pretty enough, smart enough, or worthy enough, it ate away at me, dear. It really did. Her granddaughter sat up straighter, her heart aching for the woman who had always seemed invincible. That's terrible, Granny. How could he say such things? Granny shook her head, a quiet chuckle escaping her lips as she looked down at her hands. People are strange, darling. They say things to try to make themselves feel better. I was young, and I didn't know better. I wanted to believe that maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't good enough for him. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. I'd like to say I was strong and knew exactly what to do, but I didn't. It was messy. I cried more than I ever thought I would, especially when the house felt empty and the silence was louder than all the years of insults. But slowly, I realized that I had to stop mourning the woman I used to be, the one he had broken down over time. I had to rebuild myself from the ground up. Her voice trembled slightly, and for a moment, Granny seemed far away, lost in the recollections of a painful chapter in her life. But then, she straightened up in her chair, her eyes sharpening, and a little smile curved her lips. Anyway, one day, not long after the divorce, I met someone new. The granddaughter's eyes widened, eager for more. Who? Tell me everything. Granny laughed softly, the sound rich with nostalgia. His name was George. He was the complete opposite of my ex. Handsome, yes. Taller than anyone I'd ever met, with these broad shoulders and dark, warm eyes that just made you feel safe. But more than that, George was kind. He looked at me the way no one had ever looked at me before, not with pity, not with judgment, but with admiration. Granny's voice caught, and she paused for a moment, her eyes glistening with something between joy and sorrow. The first time he looked at me like that, I almost couldn't believe it. He told me I was beautiful, and I thought he was joking. I really did. I thought, no man would ever say that to me, but he meant it. Every word. The granddaughter could feel the joy in Granny's words, but there was something else there, something deep, something painful. But then, the twist, darling, the twist came. You see, a few years into our marriage, something happened that I never expected. George, he wasn't who I thought he was. The granddaughter's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Did something happen to him? Granny's face darkened, the warmth that had filled her earlier stories fading away. No, nothing like that. It was me. You see, for all the love George gave me, for all the attention, the trips, the gifts, I never healed completely. I never really learned to love myself. I was always that girl, fatty, ugly, not good enough, and one day, I realized I was still trying to prove to myself that I was worth something, that I deserved to be loved. And George, well, he could see that. He tried to help, but I couldn't help myself. Her voice cracked and Granny paused, taking a deep breath. I started pulling away. I'd get anxious when we went out, worrying if people were looking at me, judging me. I even stopped wearing the pretty clothes he bought me. And you know what? It hurt him more than I ever thought it would. He didn't understand why I couldn't just see myself through his eyes, and neither could I. The granddaughter's chest tightened, her eyes filling with tears. Granny, that's so heartbreaking. Granny nodded slowly, her face a mix of regret and acceptance. It is, but you see, darling, life is full of twists. I thought George was my answer to everything, but the real answer was always within me. I had to learn to love myself before I could fully love him or anyone else. She paused, as if considering the weight of those words, then reached across the table and took her granddaughter's hand. And I did learn to love myself. It took time, a lot of time, but I did. And you know what? When I finally did, I realized that George had already given me the greatest gift. He showed me that I wasn't those cruel words, those labels. He showed me I was worthy of love, and that was the true treasure. The granddaughter sat in silence, her hand resting gently in Granny's. For the first time, she truly understood the depth of her grandmother's strength, the strength to love again, to rebuild, to rise above the ghosts of the past. Granny smiled softly, squeezing her hand. So, don't you ever let anyone tell you who you are. You're enough, just as you are. And if anyone ever says anything to you, you remember this story. You remember that you are not what they say you are. You are what you believe you are. And that's the most powerful thing you can ever be. The granddaughter smiled through her tears, feeling the weight of Granny's words settle into her heart. Thank you, Granny. I won't forget. And as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the room, both women sat in silence, connected. Not just by blood, but by the strength of the stories that had shaped them, the lessons they had learned, and the love that had endured.